sentiment for the market for now, but would you say it's just profit taking and perhaps not a sustainable uptick?
Look, it's very surprising given yesterday's numbers, and I think we're just following the global markets. And the big thing there is this conversation around quantitative easing globally, not the South African one we've been seeing on Twitter, but the global quantitative easing that's potentially still, available to help markets in case markets and economies started to struggle a little bit more. I think we're just following the global economic trend on the day, and the conversation being, as I've said, this quantitative easing. So the weaker currency is also helping us at 1471, helping stocks trade better on the day.
Yeah, but a key element of that 1471 must be that growth figure from yesterday, that GDP number, obviously unsurprisingly at 3.2% in terms of contraction. That's bound to hurt. President Cyril Ramaphosa didn't need a more stark reminder of how bad things are, and now he's got his work cut out for him.
Yeah, he knows what to do, I think, and he's been advised. And I believe that we needed that number to come through for everyone to get a realistic picture of how the economy is really doing. The economy is struggling. People are getting laid off. People are struggling to pay back debt. People are struggling to pay their bonds. People are struggling to pay their car finances out there, and there's just no growth. And, you can see that through the unemployment number. And I think the president has a few very difficult decisions that he needs to make, in order to stimulate this economy. But unfortunately, we don't have the sort of balance sheets that the big reserve banks from overseas, like the ECB and the central bank in America had to plug in some meaningful quantitative easing in their economies.
Yeah, so perhaps speaking then about this quantitative easing, how would South Africa go about something similar to that? As you said, yes, we may not have the bankroll to be able to do it ourselves, but how would South Africa then be able to stimulate its economy? Is that a viable option for us? Is that something we can take on? Why has it not been tried before? You do have the likes of Japan, of course, who continually put that out as a measure. The United States just stepped out of it. Europe are sitting with a conundrum around it. Why have we not stepped into that realm?
You see, quantitative easing essentially means the government is taking money out of its reserves and they are buying bonds. And if you're buying bonds, interest rates are going down. And if interest rates are going down, you're making it easy for people to borrow money and, grow their businesses or borrow money and do whatever it is they might have needed to do when interest rates were higher. And you can only do that if you've got those reserves. If you've got big enough reserves, then you can do quantitative easing that might leave a dent in the economy. And you need to do it for a protracted period of time. Some countries have run it for 5 to 10 years. And I don't think that we've got that much ammunition at the disposal of the government to actually have quantitative easing that will have a meaningful impact. I defer to saying we still need the Reserve Bank to play its role in controlling the monetary policy stance of the country and decide when interest rates should be dropped. Based on information that comes to the disposal of the current governor and his team, I really think that trying to take a plan that was used overseas when our economy is different, when our funding metrics are different, would just put us into more difficult conversations, and it will just send the economy into a worse off position. We'll run out of the 45 odd billion forex reserves that we have as a country in a very short space of time. It's been tried before in some countries and it did not work, and I think that I would urge caution on that front, Arabile.
Yeah. Would you urge even more caution with expanding the South African Reserve Bank's mandate to include growth and joblessness?
I always say that I just would like the government, in my view, to focus on creating an environment that allows entrepreneurs to be responsible for making those decisions that will create additional jobs. For example, controlling interest rates, reducing interest rates will make it easy for people to keep up with their debt payments. I'm talking corporate side. It will allow people to go to the bank and borrow money and build new structures, build businesses. And by building those businesses, then they can hire people. Then you're answering that question that says, why is the government trying to take money out of a pot and create employment and or drive the economy. My stance is that the Reserve Bank should continue to maintain its stance, or rather its responsibility of running the monetary policy position of South Africa. Anything other than that would really be opening up a can of worms that I'm afraid we might struggle to close, and it would probably the turning point of our economy. We haven't tested this in the country. We have seen some economies try to do it, especially in the emerging markets, and it has backfired quite badly. And I don't think we can afford to do any more experimentation at this stage, Arabile.
Okay, so if those aren't the levers to pull, and you've mentioned that it's about creating that operating environment that entrepreneurs can have in order to build society a whole lot better. If we can't pull these levers for growth with regards to the South African Reserve Bank, where should we be looking?
Well, we need to, it's quite a difficult one, because I know a good friend of mine, certain Mr. Kobule out there, would fight me on this one. But I think that you need to try and control government's expenditure. Because the government just can't continue to borrow money and try and be expansive with its approach to the economy through borrowings, because we're already paying a very big amount of money as a percentage from our collected revenues to service the debt that we currently have. So there's no way, I think, that the government should be borrowing money to try and expand the economy. In fact, we need to be reducing our expenditure where it's possible. Reduce the government wage bill, as an example, and potentially start looking at the social grant environment and asking the tough questions and say, is there room maybe to say for the next 2 years we can reduce the amount of money being spent on social grants? But obviously then that fits into the inability of people to spend, and the country does to an extent actually need to see spending happening. But you need to find the right balance. We cannot continue to increase expenditure. We cannot continue to pay the survival of a broader population of the country using the resources or tax collected from a very few number of people in the country. Let's just create an environment that will create more taxpayers, and at the same time let's have our government controlling its expenses as best as is possible. Yes, we've seen the reduction in ministries out there, but I think that we could have done more. We could have reduced those ministries by an even bigger number to at least reduce more government expenditure. And let's get corporate South Africa to step in and also start spending some of the cash. And for corporate South Africa to spend, we have to avoid having different conversations around the reserve banks in 5 hours by two people that are in the ANC. That is just causing chaos on the policy certainty side. So as a business person, you're then afraid to put money on the ground because you don't know if the policies that we've been told to get implemented are actually going to get implemented and get stuck to. And unfortunately, that's a very important part of the equation that could help South Africa's economy turn around. Policy certainty to give South African investors the confidence that they can put their money to work, and the foreign investors as well, to say we can continue to give Mr. Ramaphosa money to drive the economy to grow. Arabile, those are my views.
Owen, appreciate your time, but hopefully the message gets heard loud and clear at this point. Certainly needed to get South Africa's economy boosted. Owen Nkomo from Inkuzi Wealth Group, they're joining us live from the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, unpacking that market picture. It's a dire situation in South Africa, but President Cyril Ramaphosa does have his hands full on this one. That's where the buck stops.